到底如何跟 ChatGPT 做最好的沟通，也得到你要的答案呢？今天就让我们来解答跟 AI 的沟通技巧 How to write prompts。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. This month is all about generative AI and how we can use these tools to improve our professional communication. But before we deep dive into the nuances and all the details of how you can maximize, we got to start with the basics, the foundation of interacting with AI. And that really comes down to how do you prompt tools like ChatGPT and Bard to give you what you want. At the end of the day, these things only work as well as you interact with them. So how do we prompt in a way to get the best results?
I'm sure a lot of you guys are like me. We're not very used to talking to ChatGPT. So to be honest, 我觉得从一开始接触 ChatGPT, 我就发现我好像不是很会跟他来沟通。我发现, Nick, you can have like a full-on conversation with ChatGPT for 30 minutes. 那我觉得我通常好像问了2个问题，我就觉得okay, that's probably enough. 但其实它的功能就是在你要怎么样去问他问题，还有你问问题的一些方式。So for a lot of the episodes, we'll be talking about how to ask good questions. And today we're basically going to talk about how to ask good questions to AI.
And I think that's a perfect way to frame it out. One of the big communication techniques we have talked about in the several years of this podcast is asking good questions is one of the most important communication skills. Well, funny enough, asking good questions to AI is equally as important because no matter what kind of output you're looking for, the better quality of a question or the better quality you frame something, the improved output is directly connected to that. So let's talk a bit about the best practices of prompting an AI for business communication. Now, there are thousands of articles at this point. You can read about this almost everywhere. But we want to talk specifically about what works for us and how that can be used to output any kind of English communication that you need in your workplace.
I mean, today's our episode, it's more on the fundamentals, right? 是一些基本的原则，而不是在于可能什么字或者什么样子的 phrases. 因为我觉得那一些可能都会依照你想要的答案而改变. So today is just really the fundamentals and like the principles of writing good prompts and asking the right question.
Step 1 is something you're going to hear us repeat over and over again in different episodes because it's something that people just don't do, but it makes a world of difference in the quality of output you get from the AI. Step 1 is give the AI a role. Define what the AI is supposed to do in terms of what persona is it acting on? What is its job supposed to be? A lot of people jump into AI and just ask questions.
Yeah.
But when you define a role, the way it interacts with you, the tone of voice that comes out of the AI is defined by that role. So the first thing that you do in a prompt is you give the AI a role. Let's say, for example, I need help doing copywriting for the website. I would specifically tell it, you are a copywriting specialist that is going to help me build better taglines for a website.
So for here, I would even add a little bit about my role in the company. So, right, 刚刚有讲到，你可以讲说 naming the AI. So AI 你今天就是我们的 copywriting specialist. 但如果你接下来你也比较仔细的去形容，我在公司的角色是什么 ？Maybe I am head of marketing or I am a junior copywriter. 这个时候呢，AI 它也会依照这个，然后去整理或者是推荐不同的一些 tone of voice or word choice.
Now, this is a great piece of advice because when you qualify your own role, the type of terminology or the type of advice the AI will give you will also change. So let's say that I am a senior marketer with a lot of experience. When I interact with the ChatGPT, I may want it to be very specific, like the type of terminology it uses. If I'm asking it for best SEO practices, I want it to get as detailed or as technical as possible. Whereas, let's say I'm using this as a copywriting tool, but that's not my background. Be like, I'm a scientist. Marketing is not really my specialty, so you're going to be my marketing coach. Then it may approach it more like the explain like I'm 5 style. I need the fundamentals. I need the breakdown about why this is good. Don't just tell me like what the best practices are because I have no context for that.
Exactly. And if you're just happen to be a college student or a high school student, again, specify that. 因为它就会 cater 在你在的 environment 是什么，你可能必须要用的场合是什么来做一个调整。
And this is also the beauty of AI. It's not judgmental. So if you're like, I don't know anything I'm talking about, it's not going to look at you and be like, oh, why do you not know this?
Exactly, yeah. So step 1, 也就是把一个很具体的一个角色，不管是 AI 的角色，还有你自己的角色，都把它解释清楚。So that's definitely the step number 1.
Step number 2 is the thing that most people jump to, which is you give a prompt. What do you want the AI to do? I've actually given an example that you can follow along in the show notes of how I use this to write taglines. But in this case, I would simply say, I want to come up with 5 taglines describing a boutique consultancy that helps startups build better pitches to raise money from US investors. Now, I could have just said, I need 5 taglines for a consultancy that helps companies raise money. And it would have given me 5 results. But you'll notice the specificity here. It's a boutique consultancy. That dictates the size because consultancies can range anything from 1 person to several hundred people of like a McKinsey or several thousand people. I'm being very specific about what's the size of the company. I'm also being specific about who my customers are and what's the action I want them to take. Anything you can give it to be specific about what I want to do instead of I want a email template or I want a LinkedIn message template. But be specific about who you are and who you want your audience to be.
Now, I think in the show notes, 大家都可以看到这个 prompt 能够得到的 result 是什么。那大家也可以看得到，就是它在这边的 results 的部分，它的用字可能就会非常的 align 在 Nick 所提供的 prompt， 也就是这个 boutique consultancy or startups， 他们的用字就会比较 careful, right? So I think the way that they says crafting pitches, that's very much of I think for me, it's like boutique consultancy would use, right? When it helps startups.
Right. It gave me a few options, and mostly they're good. So like the first one that Sherry was talking about, like crafting pitches, funding futures, your gateway to US investors. It's taking my prompt and it's creating some interesting taglines, but some of them are still a bit generic. So like, ignite your funding journey. We make US investors sit up and listen, right? So they're fun.
Yeah.
They're not bad, but sometimes it helps to give concrete information. So step 3 is you can take a look at what your baseline is. Maybe there's something that you think is good, but if you're not impressed, then give it something to build off of. So in this case, I took the paragraph of our website and I just said, here's a paragraph from the website so that you can better understand the company and then output more. And what it immediately did is it looked at that paragraph and it started incorporating elements. So presentality, our methodology is called core. And now you get a tagline that says, Harness the power of core, transformative presentations, boundless opportunities. By giving it a reference point, it can actually start to pull things from it. You can even give it a whole website, or you can give it an entire, let's say, press release of something you have written and let it digest that information to be more specific.
For me, I think the takeaway is that don't be afraid to keep asking questions. 说真的，我可能通常都是 step 2我就会停止了. It's like, okay, I'll take what they give me. But continuously helping them to understand you better by giving them more information, right? I think this way, at least it's definitely sounds more like presentality.
And what is really nice about this is because most people assume like, oh, large language models like ChatGPT, they have all the information out there, but they're processing it all together. If you specifically say, here is my website, I want to build taglines to improve my website, then it knows exactly where you're coming from or the type of information you want to digest. The more information you give it, the better it can output information to you. Now that you've given it better context, the next step is to actually tell it what you like. Like Sherry said, some people will just put information in and they'll be like, oh, that's not bad. And then they'll take what they like and then maybe go play with it in another document. But with AI, again, it doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have judgment. So you can just be like, I only like number 4. Give me more options like number 4. And it will just output based on your preferences. So the follow-up action is just tell it what you prefer and ask it to generate more along the lines of your own preferences. You don't have to go do that yourself. In this case, in the prompts, you can see number 4 was from pitch to triumph, presentality empowers global voices. And I said, okay, give me more taglines that are similar to number 4. And so it actually started using like playing with the language. For example, it gave me from startup to stand out. Let presentality amplify your vision. So that from to, it took that idea and then it output a few other options related to that.
Oh, that's very cute. And I think they used some of the wording, right? Global, so they used the global influence as well. And they just kind of take elements from that number 4, the one that you like, and then generate more options.
And that brings us to the next step, which is when I've already specifically said, okay, these are the things I like. I've generated maybe 5 or 10 more options of what I like. Now I can start to refine little pieces. So let's say tone of voice. In Presentality's case, a lot of our previous clients were med tech startups or very scientific startups. So our specialty is really working with people with very scientifically or medically complex. So I said, I like these taglines, but try to make a few that are more serious and professional in tone. And once I gave it this prompt, it started outputting things that are much more professional in tone. So things like empowering global leadership through strategic communication, presentality, or from concept to capital, mastering global communication with presentality. So again, you can see all the things that I had asked it for before. Like I really like number 4. I like this to, from, concept, and it starts playing with that, and then it adjusts the tone of voice.
Right. And I really like the redefining cross-cultural communication excellence presentality. I should use that.
Yeah, actually, that one's a great one. Like it fits right into the paragraph that I fed it. And it would get even better if I fed it, let's say, all the copywriting on the front page of our website. Now, another way that you can refine tone is rather than giving it a generic tone or talking about what you want to see, you can use other people's tone of voice or other examples, especially if they're famous examples. So the next prompt I gave is like, these are a bit too serious. Write some taglines that might appear on Apple's website. Let's aim for some balance of innovation, simplicity, and appeal that Apple is well known for. Here are some tagline examples. So it actually is able to analyze what is normal in Apple's tone of voice and then play with that for Presentality's tone of voice.
Yeah, I thought that's quite amazing where it immediately knows exactly what Apple's tone of voice is, which is innovation, simplicity, and appeal. 然后我觉得他把所以他重整了，然后提供这些不同的 option. They're very cute, like presentality, turning vision into victories.
Or transform your narrative, inspire the world, presentality. Right? It's a little bit fluffier.
Yeah.
But it still has that sort of visionary aspect that
It
Apple
does.
likes to tie in with what it does. Now I can go back, and I even went back to the original prompt where I said, okay, create taglines that would appeal to medical device startups or science-based companies. They are usually more conservative and formal in their speaking. Emphasize that we specialize in scientifically or technically complex pitches. So now I have looked at a different range of the generic, which is make it professional, to the example of use Apple, to the more audience specific. This is my audience, this is how they think, and this is what I want to focus on. And now you get a whole different range of taglines.
So now for this one, it gives options such as presentality, translating technicality into tangibility.
Got those GRE words in there, but it's still like pretty easy to read. So it really does a good job of keeping that focus that I liked in my earlier taglines, but then changing its tone of voice or using different types of words. If these are science or medical people, maybe they consider themselves smarter, so you need to talk to them at their level. Things like presentality, scientific precision in pitch craftsmanship. Now I'm getting a little bit of that craftsmanship word, but then the precision word, like I'm balancing these things.
And I like this. Your innovation, our expertise, presentality simplifies the complex.
Straightforward, but it's a tagline that I could see with a little tweaking using quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, this is the point where you can start to get really cheeky with ChatGPT, where instead of just stopping at, oh, okay, these are good taglines, now you can push the boundaries of AI. So I'm like, these are great, but a lot of good taglines that are easy to remember, they rhyme. So now I said, okay, use the same taglines or the same ideas and now make them all rhyme. And it actually does it. It took ChatGPT 4 a little bit of time to think about this, but I was pretty impressed with what it came out with.
So now we have presentality from technicality to practicality.
Or things like elevate and relate. Make your complex pitch great with presentality.
And pitch craftsmanship with a scientific grip. Choose presentality.
So, I mean, it's a stretch on craftsmanship and scientific grip. But you can see where it's like actually trying really hard. And this is kind of how you can come up with these maybe more memorable, and you can push the limits of AI. Before generative AI, I live in thesauruses.
Yeah.
Because I really like to rhyme things, or I really like to, if this starts with A, I want my next letter to start with A, or my next word to start with A. And then I'm just like looking through the thesaurus for like something that is relative to the word I want to use, but it starts. Now with ChatGPT, I'm just like, okay, I want to make these two start with the same letter. I want to make these two rhyme. And then I can ask it for options, decide, oh, is that reasonable or am I thinking too much?
So if you had used this back in the days, how many hours would have saved you?
So many, so many. Again, AI has no limit, so you just rinse and repeat. Oh, I like tagline number 4. That's too playful. I need something that sounds more professional. Oh, could you use another company? Let's use Microsoft's writing as an example. And you can just do this over and over again until you really refine it down to what is the tone of voice that I want to create.
So again, guys, don't be afraid to keep asking questions, right? There is no amount of questions that you're ever really going to annoy ChatGPT. They take them all. And for someone like me, I think this is a really good guide, a fundamental for me to go and be like, okay, here's all the things I could ask, right? Be specific about the role and ask very specific prompts. And you can refine it even more. You can refine the tone, the where you wanted to see it, the context, the industry. So the options is really endless.
And this is the beauty of it, is where you can get down to what you really want. But the big takeaways for this particular episode are, 1, define the role. Define the role of the AI and define your own role in interacting with it. 2, the more examples or the more details that you feed it, the better the output will be. You ask generic questions, you get generic feedback. And the last is be fun. When it comes to the final result, just start asking. We have so many rhetorical devices on our Communication R&D Instagram. We've talked about parallelism or these other things in the podcast. Throw that at ChatGPT and let it try and play with the language in a way that would take you a lot more time if you did it yourself. We hope that these foundational prompt guidelines really help you in getting better output from ChatGPT. For those of you a part of our EP Insights program, you're going to see us actually get into the nitty-gritty of how to write emails, how to do copywriting with ChatGPT so that you can improve your overall business communication. Join us in the future for more generative AI this month, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.